She collapses at a crowded premiere, and Keanu Reeves rushes forward to catch her, only to glimpse the bruises she's been hiding from the world. Drawn into her silent suffering, he becomes the one person determined to uncover the truth, protect her, and prove that kindness can be more powerful than fame. The fall in the spotlight. The crowd was a storm of sound. Flash bulbs burst like tiny lightning strikes. Fans screamed names, security shouted over them, and music pounded from hidden speakers. Mia clung to the cold rail with fingers that wouldn't stop shaking, pretending the tremor was just excitement and not the leftover fear wrapped around her ribs. She had borrowed the dress from a girl in her building, a soft blue thing that didn't quite fit at the shoulders. It covered the yellowing bruise along her collarbone and the fresh fingerprint marks on her upper arm. She'd used extra makeup on the ones near her wrist and kept telling herself they were invisible under the lights. Nobody here knew her. Nobody here would look close enough to see. In front of her, the red carpet stretched like another world, glowing under the spotlights. Stars stepped out of black cars and posed as if they were made of confidence and perfect bones and easy laughter. Mia didn't care about most of them. She was here for one reason: Keanu Reeves, the man her younger brother used to imitate in their tiny living room back home. The one person in that whole industry who, from every interview she'd secretly watched at 3 a.m., seemed like he still remembered how to be human. Her vision shimmered as another wave of screams rolled forward. He was getting closer. She rose onto her toes, trying to see past the giant foam sign someone held in front of her. Her breath came short, uneven. She told herself it was just the crowd, the heat, the crush of bodies. Not the way her right side ached where she hadn't managed to twist away fast enough last night. Not the echo of a voice in her head, low, furious, too familiar. "You always mess things up, Mia." She blinked hard, pushing the memory away. This was supposed to be her one stolen night. He thought she was working late. Her phone was on silent at the bottom of her purse, heavy with unread messages she wasn't ready to see. For the first time in months, she was standing somewhere he couldn't walk in and own the air. The wave of sound changed, turned sharp higher. People around her started jumping, phones stretching high above heads, and then she saw him. Keanu was just stepping out of the car, smoothing his black suit jacket with that almost shy half-smile she'd seen on talk shows. He looked tired in the way real people did, with faint lines at the edges of his eyes, but there was something calm in the way he moved, like he took up space without needing to dominate it. He turned to wave, and the crowd surged, pressing Mia hard against the barricade. Metal bit into her ribs, her lungs stuttered. For a second, the world narrowed to the sound of her own breathing, too fast, too shallow. The lights blurred. She tried to lift her arm to wave, just once, just to say, "You helped me, even if you don't know it." But pain shot up from her wrist into her shoulder. Colors pulsed at the edges of her vision. "Not now, not here." She dug her fingernails into the rail, fighting the dizzy black creeping in from the edges. Around her, people were laughing, crying, begging for autographs. Somewhere, a security guard yelled at the crowd to push back. Mia's knees loosened, her muscles finally giving up on the lie that she was fine. Her last clear image was of Keanu, turning his head in her direction as another wave of fans howled his name. Their eyes met for the briefest heartbeat. She opened her mouth to call out, but the sound never came. The rail spun sideways, the lights exploded into white, and then the floor rushed up to meet her. From the outside, it happened in a blur. 1 second, she was just another face in the screaming crowd, and the next she was tipping backward, her legs folding, her body crumpling into the open space between fans. People gasped, a few phones dropped, a couple of security guards moved, but the man on the carpet moved faster. Keanu stepped off the marked path without hesitating, ignoring the handler reaching for his sleeve. His long strides cut through the space as the fans parted. For a moment, the cameras forgot about posed angles and perfect lighting and swung toward the unexpected. "Careful," someone shouted as he reached the barricade. Mia's body slid sideways in slow motion, about to hit the ground. Keanu leaned in, catching her under the shoulders just before her head struck the concrete. The weight of her surprised him. She was lighter than he expected, like a bundle someone had forgotten to fill. She was unconscious or very close to it, her head lolling against his arm, dark hair covering half her face. "It's okay, I've got you," he murmured, more to her than to anyone else, his voice low and steady in the chaos. Flash after flash erupted around them, but he barely glanced at the cameras. He shifted his grip, trying to keep her as steady and protected as possible. As he adjusted her weight, the loose neckline of her dress slipped slightly, and her sleeve rode up. That was when he saw them. Dark, round marks blooming under her skin like fingerprints branded in reverse. Old bruises mixing with new ones, shaped by a hand that had not been gentle. The pattern was too clear, too familiar to be from an accidental fall. Her other arm told the same story, faint yellow fading into angry purple. For a split second, the noise of the crowd died in his ears. All he could hear was the loud, steady thud of his own heart and the slow, shallow breaths dragging in and out of her chest. Anger flickered through him, not the wild kind that roared, but the deep, quiet sort that settled like weight behind his ribs. "Paramedics," he called, looking up, his voice calm but firm. "Now, please." One of the event coordinators rushed over, breathless. "We've got a medic station inside, Mr. Reeves, if you just—" "I'm not leaving her on the ground," he said, already lifting Mia a bit higher in his arms. He kept his voice gentle, but there was steel under it. "Clear a path, okay?" The coordinator swallowed and nodded, suddenly more flustered than starstruck. Security moved in, forming a loose shield as Keanu carefully stepped away from the barricade, carrying the unconscious girl as if she were made of something fragile and easily broken. Fans shouted his name, some still filming, some reaching out as if they might touch the moment, but he didn't look up again. Mia's head rested against his chest, her hair falling back enough for him to see her face. She was young, but not a kid. There were faint lines of tiredness under her closed eyes, a small scar near her eyebrow, lips pressed together even in faint. He recognized the look of someone who hadn't been sleeping, someone who'd been living on the edge of too much for too long. Inside, away from most of the noise, an event medic waited with a folding cot and a clipboard in a small room that smelled of disinfectant and expensive perfume. Keanu laid her down carefully, adjusting her arm so it didn't press on the worst of the bruises. The medic started checking her pulse, her breathing, shining a light into her eyes. "She probably fainted from the heat," the medic said, professional but distant. "Dehydration, maybe anxiety. We'll let her rest. We can call an ambulance if—" "Look at her arms," Keanu interrupted softly. The medic paused, eyes following where he pointed. Their expression shifted, a quick flash of discomfort and something like sympathy crossing their face before it smoothed out again. It could be a lot of things," Keanu said, still calm, but there was no mistaking the edge now. "I know that, just don't pretend you don't see it." The medic nodded once, more seriously this time. "I'll make a note, we'll keep an eye on her. Do you know her name?" Keanu looked down at the girl, at the lashes resting against her cheeks. She looked so still, but up close he could see her fingers twitch once, as though she was trying to hold on to something in a dream. "No," he admitted, "not yet." He should have gone back to the carpet. There were publicists probably panicking right now, cameras waiting, an entire machine built on schedules and shallow smiles. But he didn't move toward the door. Something in the way her body had tensed even in unconsciousness, something in those bruises that did not belong on anyone's skin, made it impossible to walk away. Minutes passed. The medic checked her blood pressure again, scribbling notes on a small pad. Somewhere down the hall, the muffled roar of the premiere went on as if nothing had happened. In this small room, there was only the hum of the air conditioner and the faint sound of Mia's breathing. Then slowly, her eyelashes fluttered. Keanu leaned closer, hands resting lightly on the edge of the cot so she would see him first, not a stranger with a flashlight. Her eyes opened partway, unfocused, pupils trying to remember where they'd left the world. She blinked up at him, confusion clouding her features. For a second, she thought she was still dreaming. The face above her was one she'd only ever seen on screens and magazine covers. In this close, real version, his eyes were warmer, darker, lined with concern. "You're okay," he said quietly. "You fainted, you're safe here, all right." "Am I?" Her voice cracked, dry and small. "Am I in trouble?" The question hit him harder than it should have. That was what she asked first, not where she was, not what happened if she was in trouble. "No," he said firmly, "you're not in trouble." Her gaze flicked down, as if remembering her own body, and she saw the edge of a bruise peeking from under the sleeve of her dress. Her eyes widened, panic stirring behind the fog. "Please don't," she whispered, then cut herself off, sucking in a shaky breath. Keanu hesitated, weighing his next words. Years of watching people get chewed up by the industry, years of his own private scars that he never talked about in interviews, all crowded behind what he wanted to ask. Finally, he chose honesty. "I saw the marks," he said softly, so only she could hear. "On your arms. You don't have to explain anything you don't want to, but I need you to know nobody has the right to do that to you." Tears welled in her eyes so fast it was like they'd just been waiting for permission. She turned her head toward the wall, as if ashamed of the emotion itself, fighting it back with tight, trembling lips. "You don't understand," she whispered. "If he finds out I'm here, if he sees this on the news." Keanu's brows drew together. "If who finds out?" Before she could answer, before he could say anything else, a phone buzzed angrily in her purse, vibrating against the table with enough force to rattle a plastic cup. Mia flinched at the sound, every muscle in her body going rigid. Her eyes snapped to the bag, terror flooding the hazel there now, washing away what little color had returned to her face. "He already knows," she breathed, barely louder than a thought, as the phone lit up with a name she hoped more than anything he would not see. Mia stared at the vibrating purse as if it were a live wire on the table. The medic's voice faded. The air conditioner hum disappeared. All she could hear was that angry buzz and the echo of his voice in her head, the one that always sounded most dangerous when it was very, very calm. "He already knows," she whispered. Keanu followed her gaze to the purse, then back to her face. Her pupils were still a little blown from fainting, but the fog had cleared into sharp, shaking fear. He had seen that look before, not on carpets or sets, but in real life, people at their limit, waiting for the next blow, even when no fist was raised. "Is that him?" he asked quietly. She swallowed, her throat moving like it hurt. Don't answer it, please." Her fingers curled in the thin blanket, knuckles whitening. "If I don't pick up, he'll be mad. If you pick up, he'll be worse." The phone stopped. The silence that followed was almost worse than the sound. Then it started again, buzzing with renewed fury. The screen lit up bright against the dim room, and this time Keanu saw the name flashing there. ETHIN. No heart emoji, no goofy nickname. Just plain, capital letters like a warning label. The medic shifted, uncomfortable. "If someone is worried about you, we can let them know you're okay," they offered, too carefully neutral. "Sometimes that helps." Mia gave a short, humorless laugh that broke halfway through. "You don't know him," she said, eyes still locked on the phone. "He doesn't get worried, he gets possessive." Keanu reached over and, with her watching, flipped the purse so the phone was face down. The buzzing continued, now muffled. "You're in control of what happens with that phone," he said. "Not him." Her jaw twitched. "That's not how it works outside this room." The door opened a crack, letting in a wedge of noise and light from the hallway. A woman in a headset and black blazer slipped in, already speaking before she fully crossed the threshold. "Mr. Reeves, sorry, they're asking for you on the carpet. We're running behind and the director is." She stopped when she saw Mia on the cot, the medic, the turned-over purse. Her eyes flicked from the bruises to Keanu's face, doing fast, silent math. For a second, the well-trained PR smile faltered. "We can have someone else stay with her," the woman said, softer now. "You really need to get back out there." Keanu didn't move. "She shouldn't be alone right now," he answered. "You can tell them I'll be a few minutes late." "A few minutes is," the woman began, then seemed to read something in his expression and changed direction mid-sentence. I'll see what I can do." When the door clicked shut again, the room felt smaller. Mia stared at him in a mix of awe and guilt. "You're going to get in trouble because of me," she said. "If I'm in trouble for not walking away from someone who needs help," he replied, "that's a kind of trouble I'm okay with." Her eyes shone again, but she blinked the tears back before they fell. She took a deep breath, then another, gathering pieces of courage like scattered glass. "Ethan is my boyfriend," she said, the words sticking in her mouth. "He's also my manager at the diner. He handles our rent, the bills, everything. He put a tracker app on my phone for safety, but really it's for control. If I go somewhere that's not work or home he didn't approve, he calls. If I don't answer, he comes." "He has your location right now," Keanu realized quietly. "So he knows you're here." She nodded. "He hates this stuff. Movies, actors, fake people." Her lips twisted at the memory. "He says they put ideas in my head, that I start thinking I deserve more than what I've got. Tonight he said I could take an extra shift or stay home and not dress like a problem. I told him I was tired. Then I waited for him to leave and came here instead." "And he's figured it out," Keanu said. "And when he does, he doesn't yell in public," Mia added, voice dropping. "He smiles, he waits. Then later, when it's just us, he explains why it's my fault." The phone finally fell silent. For a heartbeat, all three of them breathed as if they had been underwater. Then it buzzed again, longer this time, and a preview of a message lit up the screen where it peeked from the purse's zipper. "Where are you? I'm outside." Mia's whole body flinched, as if the letters themselves had struck her. Sweat broke out along her hairline. Her hand shot out, grabbing Keanu's sleeve without thinking, fingers digging into the fabric. "You don't understand," she whispered. "If he's outside, he'll talk his way in. He always does. He's charming when he wants something." Keanu's hand came up, resting gently over hers, not pulling away. His voice stayed calm, but there was a new weight to it. "He's not getting to you without going through a lot of people first," he said. "And you're not alone in here. We can make choices. We can call security, the police, a hotline." "No police," she cut in, too fast, panic flaring. "He said if I ever called them, he'd make sure my little brother loses his spot at school. He knows people there. He always knows people somewhere." There it was, another chain she'd been dragging, invisible till now. "You have a brother here?" Keanu asked. "James," she said, the name softening her voice. "He's 15. He doesn't know about most of this. He just thinks Ethan is strict." "And you're protecting him by taking the hits," Keanu said, not as a question. Her lips trembled. "It's easier if it's just me." A sharp knock cut through the room. The door swung open and a security coordinator stepped in, dressed in black with a small earpiece coiled around his ear. He looked between Mia and Keanu, then shut the door fully behind him. "Mr. Reeves," he said, all business. "We've got a guy at the front entrance causing a scene. Says his girlfriend passed out and you snatched her away from him. He's yelling that we're holding her against her will and threatening to call the press and the cops." Mia's fingers tightened on Keanu's sleeve until her nails bit through the cloth. The guard continued. "He knows your name. Says if you do send her out right now, he's going to make sure the world sees what kind of hero you really are." The room seemed to tilt around Mia. She looked up at Keanu with wide, frightened eyes, caught between the man outside and the one standing beside her now. What are you going to do?" she whispered, not sure if she meant him or herself. The hallway smelled of metal and cologne, and something greasy from the catering stands down the corridor. Mia moved between Keanu and the security guard, feeling like she was walking toward a cage with her name on it. "You don't have to come out," Keanu had told her before they left the medic room. "You can stay in there, lock the door. We can handle this without you seeing him." "If I'm not there," she'd said, voice thin, "he'll say you're brainwashing me. He'll say I'm confused, and part of me will believe him even if I'm not listening. I need to see him with other eyes, just once." So now she walked, her legs shaky but moving, flanked by two men who barely knew her and yet were taking her fear seriously. It felt unreal, like stepping onto a movie set, except her heart wasn't acting when it pounded against her ribs. They stopped near a side entrance that led toward the main lobby. Another pair of guards stood in front of the glass doors, holding a man back with their open palms. Even through the glass, she recognized the posture instantly. Shoulders loose, one hip cocked, head tilted just so, like he was almost amused. Ethan looked annoyingly handsome, the way he always did when he was about to twist a situation his way. Dark hair styled, sleeves rolled up to show forearms he was proud of, shirt crisp and clean. To a stranger, he would look like a worried boyfriend locked out of seeing his girl. Only the tightness at the corner of his mouth and the flat light in his eyes betrayed the anger simmering under the smile. "Baby," he called out the second he saw her behind the guards. His voice turned soft, surprised. "There you are. What happened? They wouldn't tell me anything, they just dragged you away from me." He pressed a hand dramatically to his chest, then spread his arms as if inviting a hug through solid glass. The guards didn't move. Mia froze a few steps back, suddenly very aware of how small she was compared to everyone else. Ethan's gaze slid to the man beside her, and for the first time she saw him take Keanu in fully. Recognition flickered across his face, mixed with something sour. "Oh," Ethan said, his tone shifting. "So that's what this is." The guard stepped up to the door and cracked it open a few inches, enough for voices to pass through but not bodies. "Sir, you need to calm down," he said. "She fainted, she's being checked out by medical, she's fine." "She's my girlfriend," Ethan replied, all fake patience. "You can't keep her from me, I have rights." His eyes never left Mia's. They softened, the edges of a practiced smile curving his mouth. "Come on me," he coaxed. "Look at you, you're pale, you hate crowds like this. Let me take you home, okay? We'll talk about whatever this is later. I'm not mad, I was just scared." The words slid over her like oil. For a second, her muscles reacted the way they always had, an almost automatic step forward, the instinct to go to him, to diffuse, to smooth everything over. Her feet actually moved an inch. Then she felt a presence steady at her side. Keanu didn't touch her, not this time, but she could feel the way he angled his body just slightly, not blocking her view, not putting himself in front like a shield, but standing where she could lean if she wanted to. "She's under our care now," he said to Ethan, his voice calm, not loud but carrying. "She'll decide what she wants to do." Ethan's eyes snapped to his, the softness vanishing like someone had flipped a switch. "And who are you exactly?" Ethan asked, though it was obvious he knew. "Her doctor, her father, her hero." A crooked, mocking smile touched his lips. "Let me guess, you picked her out of the crowd to play the good guy in front of the cameras." Keanu's expression didn't change. "I saw someone fall and I helped her," he said. "That's all." "Oh, that's all," Ethan echoed. "Must be nice to play saint when you've got an army of PR people cleaning up for you." Mia flinched, the old, familiar confusion rising. Ethan always knew how to twist things until she doubted her own memory. Had she been too dramatic? Was she making a scene? Had she put Keanu in a bad spot? "Ethan," she managed, her voice thinner than she wanted. "I fainted, that's all." His gaze slid back to her, and for a heartbeat, she saw what everyone else probably saw. Concern, warmth, a man hurt at being kept from the woman he cared about. "Right," he nodded gently. "You fainted because you don't take care of yourself like I tell you. You run off to places like this, chasing fantasies instead of resting. And now look where we are. But it's okay. I forgive you, just come on, before this gets messy." His tone on the last word made the hairs on her arms stand up. She could picture too clearly what messy looked like behind closed doors. An empty glass skidding across the floor, her back against a wall that felt more like a corner. The head of security cleared his throat, stepping forward. "Ma'am," he said carefully to Mia, keeping his eyes on her face. "We need to be very clear. You are not being held here. If you want to go with this man, we can't stop you. If you do not want him near you, you need to say that, so we have grounds to remove him from the premises." Ethan's jaw flexed. For a split second, his eyes flashed pure warning at her. Then his voice dropped just for her, the words slipping clean through the small opening in the door. "Think about James," he murmured. "Who do you think keeps a roof over his head? Movie boy here, you really want to find out what happens when I'm not there." Her vision wavered at the edges. She remembered James hunched over his homework at their tiny kitchen table, earbuds in, mouthing lyrics to some song she didn't know. She remembered hospital bills with too many zeros, the night Ethan had put his card down and then reminded her of it every argument since. Her body leaned forward again, the old habit of surrender pulling at her. Then another voice cut through, low and steady. "You don't owe him your fear to keep your brother safe. Keanu said, not looking at Ethan now but at her. People who hurt you will always tell you that you're nothing without them. That's how they stay in control. It's not that simple, she whispered, torn between them. I know it's not simple, he replied. There was a hint of something personal in his eyes now, some private grief she couldn't name. But simple or not, you still get to choose whose voice you listen to right now. The security guard waited, eyes patient but firm. Ethan's smile had gone brittle, barely hiding the rage curling like smoke behind his teeth. Mia's heart slammed against her ribs as if it wanted to break out and run. Years of training under Ethan's rules screamed at her to apologize, to walk out, to minimize the damage. Another quieter voice, one that sounded surprisingly like her own at 13, watching movies with James in their cluttered living room, whispered, "You always said you'd never let anyone treat you like this." She took a breath that burned on the way in, her mouth opened. She started, the word barely there. Every gaze in that little hallway locked on her. Part 4. I don't want him near me. The sentence came out rough-edged and shaking, but it was whole. It hung in the air like a bell that could not be unrung. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. Then everything happened at once. The head of security straightened, snapping into a new posture, as if some invisible switch had flipped from monitor to protect. The guards at the door shifted their grip, bodies angling between Ethan and the opening. "Sir, you need to leave," the guard said, voice now clipped. "She has made her wishes clear. If you don't comply, we'll escort you off the property and involve the police." Ethan's face went through 3 expressions so quick they almost blurred. Disbelief, wounded confusion, and then, finally, the raw, ugly anger Mia knew too well. "Me," he said, the softness gone. "Think about what you're saying. Think about everything I've done for you, for James. You're really going to humiliate me in front of these people." Humiliate, not hurt, not scare, not bruise, humiliate. Guilt slammed into her out of habit, but it hit something solid this time instead of sinking all the way down. Her mind replayed the moment she hit the concrete barricade, the way her body had almost met the ground before those arms caught her. No one here had asked her what she'd done wrong. No one had sighed or rolled their eyes. They just helped. She swallowed, throat tight. "I'm not trying to humiliate you," she said, softer now but no less firm. "I'm trying not to die by inches." Ethan's eyes flicked to Keanu and his lips curled. "You hear that?" he snarled. "This is what you've done. You filled her head with this dramatic nonsense." "That's all you," Keanu answered. "All I did was carry her when she fell." "Yeah, into your world," Ethan shot back. "With your fake morals and your speeches. You think you're better than the rest of us because people clap when you pretend to save someone on a screen." Keanu didn't rise to it. "This isn't about me," he said simply. "This is about the fact that she said no. That should be the end of the conversation." Ethan laughed once, a sharp sound that had no humor in it. "End of the conversation?" he repeated. "You really are naive." He leaned closer to the narrow, open gap in the door, his voice dropping low again, the way it did when he wanted to make sure only Mia heard the worst parts. "You just threw away the only thing standing between your brother and the street," he hissed. "You think this guy is going to remember your name tomorrow? You think his rich friends are gonna line up to help some nobody waitress? When the dust settles, you'll come crawling back, and trust me, I won't make it this easy next time." "Sir," the security guard snapped, "that's enough." He signaled with one hand, and the 2 guards at the door moved as one, pulling it open wider just long enough to step out, then closing it again with a solid thud. Through the glass, Mia watched them take position on either side of Ethan, hands gentle but firm on his arms. "Don't touch me," Ethan barked, trying to wrench free. They held steady, practiced. As they began to walk him away from the entrance, he twisted his head back toward the glass, eyes locked on Mia's. "Check your phone," he shouted. "You think this is over? Check your phone." Then he was gone, his voice swallowed by the distant roar of the crowd outside. The guards disappeared after him, and the head of security exhaled slowly, as if only now remembering how to breathe. Inside, the silence felt huge. Mia's knees wobbled. The adrenaline that had shoved her to her feet, carried her down the hallway, held her upright in front of the man who'd been dictating her life, finally let go. The world swayed. A steady hand touched her elbow. "Easy," Keanu said. "Sit down before gravity wins again." He guided her to a nearby bench against the wall. She sank onto it, feeling like her bones were made of wet paper. The head of security muttered something about filing an incident report and slipped away, giving them space. The moment the door at the end of the hall clicked shut, Mia's shoulders shook. Not from sobs at first, but from the sheer physical shock of what she'd done. Saying no had always sounded so simple in movies. In real life, it felt like stepping off a cliff and trusting the ground to rise up to meet you. "You did something really brave," Keanu said quietly, sitting a respectful distance away. "I know it probably doesn't feel that way. It usually doesn't." She swiped at her eyes, a wet laugh catching in her throat. "It feels like I just made the biggest mistake of my life." "Maybe," he said, honest. "And maybe it's the first right thing you've been allowed to do for yourself in a long time. Those two feelings like to travel together." She looked at him then, really looked. Up close, he didn't have the perfect, polished glow of the posters outside. There were faint shadows under his eyes, a small scar near his jaw, tiny lines that spoke of years lived and lost. Somehow, that made his words easier to believe. "You don't even know me," she said, voice soft and frayed. "You don't know if I'm worth all this." His brow furrowed slightly, as if the idea itself didn't make sense. "You fainted in front of me," he said. "That's enough to be worth concern. You're a person, that's the whole list." Another tear slipped free. This time she didn't chase it. She let it track down her cheek, leaving a clean line through her makeup. "I came here tonight because my brother used to pretend to be you," she blurted, the confession surprising even her. "He'd jump off the sofa and roll across the floor and say he was doing stunts like you. I would tell him if he kept that up he'd break his arm and we couldn't afford the hospital, and he'd say, 'Keanu would pay.'" She winced, suddenly embarrassed. "Sorry, that sounds weird." A small, real smile tugged at his mouth. "I've been included in stranger kid games," he said. "Once a 5-year-old told me I was the boss of all the ninjas, felt like a lot of responsibility." Despite everything, a tiny snort of laughter escaped her. It surprised her so much she clapped a hand over her mouth, as if she'd broken some invisible rule about not finding anything funny when your life was falling apart. "There it is," he said gently. "Proof your sense of humor survived this far." The warmth of that moment lasted exactly 3 seconds. Then her mind lashed back to Ethan's last words. "Check your phone." The thought crawled across her skin like ants. Her gaze dropped to her purse, still half open, the phone inside a small, dark weight. "I'm scared to look," she admitted. "You don't have to look alone," he replied. "And you don't have to respond at all, that's your decision." She nodded, fingers trembling as she reached for the bag. The phone lit up the second her hand brushed it, as if it had been waiting for her touch. A cluster of unread notifications flashed across the lock screen. 7 missed calls, 12 new messages. Her thumb hesitated over the first preview. Then she tapped to open the conversation. The latest text was at the top, sent less than a minute ago. It wasn't a threat, not in words. It was a photo. Her brother's backpack. The old, faded black one James carried everywhere, sitting on what looked like the worn concrete steps outside their apartment building. The angle was low, like someone had put it down and stepped back. Beneath the photo, Ethan had typed, "Let's see how brave you are when he's the one waiting on the curb. Clock's ticking." Her vision swam, the hallway blurred. For a second she thought she might faint again, but this time the ground seemed to tilt in a different direction, toward panic, not emptiness. "He's going after my brother," she breathed, the words scraping her throat. "He's really doing it. James at home. He thinks Ethan's the good guy." Her hand tightened so hard around the phone that her fingers ached. She looked up at Keanu, eyes wild, caught between fight and flight and something more desperate. "What do I do?" she asked, the question as raw as a wound. "If I go back, it starts all over. If I stay, my brother pays for it. I can't win this." The sounds of the premiere drifted faintly through the walls. Music, laughter, applause for a movie starting without its star. In this quiet hallway, under bright, unforgiving lights, a different story was demanding to be written. Keanu met her gaze, his own expression steady, serious. "We don't have to play by his rules anymore," he said, "but we do have to move fast." He reached into his jacket for his phone, thumb already moving as he stood. "I'm calling in help," he said. "Real help, and we're going to get your brother safe." The promise hung in the air between them, heavy with hope and risk, as somewhere across the city, a boy with a faded backpack waited on a set of concrete steps he didn't yet know were part of a war.